One of the leading weight loss experts, Dr. Mindy Pelz, recently shared her personal secret for fast and effective weight loss. According to her, instead of counting calories or following complicated diets, all you really need to do to see the numbers on the scale move in the right direction is learn how to switch your metabolism into fat-burning mode. And while that may sound complicated at first, in reality, it comes down to one simple thing: avoiding major spikes in blood sugar.
You have two metabolisms. So you burn energy when you eat, and you burn energy when you don't eat. But they're two different mechanisms. So when you eat, like, let's use myself as an example. I had eggs and some avocado for around 11 o'clock today. So that's going to bring my blood sugar up. Now, as my blood sugar starts to drop, what's going to happen is my body's going to switch over into this other energy system. And I call this the fat-burning energy system. I call this one the sugar burner energy system.
Constantly elevated blood sugar keeps your body trapped because it is forced to burn only the energy that is coming in from food. On top of that, high blood sugar usually means high insulin levels as well, the hormone responsible for bringing those sugar spikes back down. The problem is that insulin also sends a signal to store fat, which is why so many people's efforts fail to produce results. In other words, no matter how hard you work out in the gym or how carefully you count calories, high blood sugar and high insulin can keep you overweight. According to Dr. Pelz, fasting is one of the most effective ways to change that. Referring to research, she explains that around the 36-hour mark, fasting becomes the metabolic switch that helps the body enter a state of maximum fat burning. At that point, the body begins shifting away from relying on incoming food for fuel and starts drawing much more heavily on its stored fat reserves instead.
I mean, the research is really interesting that 36 hours into a fast, the body goes and starts to burn specifically belly fat. Now, that research was done on, just so we're clear, 36 hours followed by 12 hours of eating, and then 36 hours of fasting followed by 12 for 30 days. And they started to see waist circumference go down.
Let's be honest, 36 hours sounds intimidating right away. For someone who is not prepared, the body simply will not tolerate that kind of stress very well, and hunger will eventually win. But if you understand the reason why a 36-hour fast can be so effective, you can achieve weight loss through a much easier approach. At its core, any form of fasting puts your body into a state of energy shortage. In other words, energy is no longer coming in from the outside, so the body decides to use what it has already stored. Physiologically, this is accompanied by a drop in blood glucose and insulin levels, which triggers the release of stored fat. And in order to keep you from passing out and to allow you to keep functioning, that fat begins to be burned for energy. Dr. Pelz often describes this as an evolutionary process, using our ancestors as an example.
So if I go back to the hunter and gatherers, they came out of the cave. They didn't have DoorDash. They didn't have a refrigerator. They didn't know how to get food. They had to go find food. Now, if blood sugar is going down and they've got to go find food and they pass out, 100 yards from the cave, then we wouldn't be sitting here right now. But that didn't happen. What happened is they went out to go hunt, and the longer they were away trying to find food, the more they metabolically switched into this other fuel source called the ketogenic energy system. I like to call it the fat-burning system, because what their body did, we were like a hybrid car. The body was like, okay, blood sugar's going down. Okay, time to switch over to our other fuel source. We're going to pop in and start burning fat and make a ketone. And then that ketone went up into their brain, sharpened their focus, and made them even stronger to go find food.
So the real question becomes, how long do you actually need to go without food before your body switches from burning sugar to burning fat? Do you really need to fast for a full 36 hours? Of course not. The truth is that the transition starts much earlier.
I think of it like a hybrid car. You switch over into this fat-burning place. So at 8 hours, you start to make the switch. By about 12 hours, your body's now starting to make a good dose of ketones. The brain is excited, so you're getting that mental clarity. Ketones turn off the hunger hormone. So you also, when you switch over, there's going to be a point in which you're not hungry. And that all happens at about 12 hours.
In reality, 12 hours is more than enough to enter this state of energy shortage and get at least some of its benefits, which already makes fasting about 3 times easier. But it becomes even easier if you combine it with your body's natural fasting window. In other words, a period when you are not eating, not because you are restricting yourself, but because your body simply does not need food physiologically. That window opens at night while you sleep. A healthy night's sleep lasts about 8 hours, which means your fasting period is effectively reduced to just 4 additional hours. And if you split those 4 hours into 2 parts, by not eating for 2 hours before bed and 2 hours after waking up, you will barely notice any discomfort at all. Of course, it is important to point out that this is only a small fasting-based trick that helps shift your metabolism into a state where losing weight becomes physiologically easier by reducing the number of eating occasions. At first, much of the benefit comes simply from eating 3 proper meals a day and eliminating snacks altogether. Because those small snacks throughout the day are often one of the biggest reasons people gain weight in the first place. And much of that comes down to dopamine, the so-called feel-good hormone.
I found some research showing that when people go without food for 48 hours, the whole dopamine system will be rebooted. So what's important to know about the dopamine system is it is our molecule of happiness. It is the thing that it's actually a motivation molecule. And it's a neurotransmitter that allows thoughts, happy thoughts, to go across from neuron to neuron. And so what happens, and I'm sure you've talked about this on your podcast, that we're so dopamine saturated right now. But specifically people who are overeaters, they actually are finding, the study I quote in the book is that they found that people who had food addiction, people who had extra weight, like obese situations, they were not getting as much happiness out of their food because their dopamine receptor sites were saturated. So they had to eat more food to get more happiness.
In other words, if you are overweight today, there is a 99% chance that food has become more than just fuel. It has become your way of coping with stress. It has become a source of positive emotions. It has become a form of entertainment. And that is exactly what fasting should help change. The goal is to turn food back into energy instead of emotion. If you stop eating 2 hours before bed, you wake up the next morning with at least 10 hours of fasting already behind you. At that point, your body has already begun to switch gears, and if you do not give in to emotional cravings, you can comfortably extend that fasting period by skipping breakfast and waiting until lunch, making the fat-burning effect even stronger. At the beginning, do not focus on how much weight you are losing. Instead, pay attention to how often you feel hungry. That is the key indicator. If those random hunger attacks start disappearing, it means the process is working. You may not lose much during the first week, but you can stabilize your blood sugar and insulin levels. Then by the second week, the results can start coming much faster. Dr. Pelz recommends not stopping there and continuing to support your metabolism with specific foods that help keep your body in a fat-burning state.
There are signs that coffee and studies showing that it can speed up our metabolism. Now, if you don't drink coffee, I'm not telling you to go drink it, but there is some really interesting indications that people who drink coffee have a faster metabolism. So you could do that. Capsicum, something spicy. So cayenne pepper, which is a spice, has a heat to it. And that heat has actually been proven to speed up metabolism.
The combination of simplified fasting and foods that help speed up your metabolism is the perfect recipe for fast and, more importantly, easy weight loss. Stop wasting your time on methods that bring nothing but stress and frustration. Use approaches that feel comfortable and sustainable, and getting results will become much easier.